The bank called me about a $390,000 mortgage. My name was there. I never signed. My parents added me to my sister's loan. Having you here listening to me means a lot. Watch until the end and let me know in the comments which city you're watching from. I'm really curious to see how far my story is reaching. The bank called me about a $390,000 mortgage, in my name. I never signed. My parents put me on my sister's loan. Ms. Palmer, we're calling about the missed payments on your mortgage. The unfamiliar voice on the other end of the line was professional but stern. I almost laughed. I think you have the wrong number. I don't have a mortgage. This is Amanda Palmer, correct? The woman paused, typing something. For the property at 1428 Oakwood Drive? My heart skipped a beat. Oakwood Drive was where my sister Rebecca lived, in the sprawling 4-bedroom house she'd purchased last year. The house I'd helped her move into, carrying boxes up the curved staircase while she directed the professional movers handling her designer furniture. There must be some mistake, I said, my voice suddenly dry. That's my sister's house. According to our records, you're the primary borrower on a $390,000 mortgage for that property. The account is now 60 days past due. The room started spinning. I gripped the edge of my kitchen counter to steady myself. That's impossible. I never signed anything. Can you send me the documents? 20 minutes later, I stared at my email in disbelief. There it was, my signature on a mortgage agreement. But I had never signed this. The signature looked like mine, but with subtle differences only I would notice. The loop of the was too wide, the crossing of the T too high. With trembling fingers, I called my parents. Mom answered on the third ring. Amanda. What a nice surprise. Your father and I were just. Mom, I cut her off, my voice barely above a whisper. Why did I just get a call about a mortgage in my name for Rebecca's house? The silence that followed told me everything. Oh, she finally said, her voice dropping. You weren't supposed to find out like this. My stomach clenched. Find out what, exactly? Honey, it's not a big deal. Rebecca needed help with the loan, and your credit score is so good. Not a big deal? I repeated, my voice rising. You put me on a $390,000 loan without my knowledge? Now, Amanda, don't be dramatic. My father's voice came through. He must have picked up the extension. It was just a formality. Rebecca makes the payments. Except she's not, I said, my words sharp as glass. The bank just called me about missed payments. Another silence. Well, Mom said finally, she's been going through a rough patch since her promotion. You know how demanding her new position is. I closed my eyes, fighting back tears. So you forged my signature? We didn't, Dad started. Don't lie to me. I snapped. I never signed these documents. My signature was forged. It wasn't like that, Mom insisted. We just helped you sign. Rebecca really needed this house for her image at the firm, and they wouldn't approve her a loan because of her other debts. Other debts. Of course. You've put my entire financial future at risk, I said, my voice shaking. Do you even understand that? You're overreacting, Dad said dismissively. Your sister will catch up on the payments. Besides, you weren't using your credit for anything important anyway. I felt like I'd been slapped. For the past 3 years, I'd been scrimping and saving for a down payment on my own modest condo. Working overtime, packing lunches, saying no to vacations with friends, all to build my future. And all that time, my parents had decided my financial security was theirs to gamble with. We need to talk about this in person, I said flatly. All of us. Tonight. Tonight's not good, Mom hedged. Rebecca has a dinner with clients, and either we talk tonight, or I go straight to the police to report fraud, I said, surprising myself with my own resolve. Your choice. 2 hours later, I sat across from my family at my parents' dining table, the same table where we'd had countless Sunday dinners, Christmas celebrations, and birthday parties. Now it felt like an interrogation room. Rebecca didn't even have the decency to look ashamed. She examined her manicured nails, sighing dramatically as if this were all a huge inconvenience to her. "I can't believe you're making such a big deal out of this," she said, rolling her eyes. "It's just a signature, Amanda. It's not like I stole your identity or something." "That's exactly what you did," I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. "All of you." Mom reached across the table, trying to take my hand. I pulled away. "Honey, we just wanted to help Rebecca get established. You know how important appearances are in her field. And what about me? What about my future?" "You've always been the responsible one," Dad said, as if that explained everything. "We knew you could handle it if anything went wrong." I stared at him in disbelief. "So because I'm responsible, I deserve to have my financial future destroyed?" Rebecca huffed. "Nothing's being destroyed. I just need a few months to catch up." "With what money?" I demanded. "You just posted pictures of your trip to the Bahamas last weekend. You're tracking my social media now?" Rebecca scoffed. "God, you've always been jealous of me." I felt something inside me break, the last thread of what I thought our family was. "I'm not jealous," I said quietly. "I'm betrayed." The silence that followed was deafening. My mother's lips trembled as she exchanged glances with my father. Rebecca just rolled her eyes again, as if my pain was the most inconvenient thing in her world. "Look," my father finally said, leaning forward. "The situation isn't ideal, but we're family. We help each other." "Help?" I echoed, my voice hollow. "This isn't help. This is fraud." My mother gasped. "Amanda. Don't use that word." "Why not?" "It's accurate." I pulled out my phone and showed them the definition I'd looked up before coming over. Fraud, wrongful deception intended to result in financial gain. "Tell me how this doesn't qualify." Rebecca slammed her hand on the table. "For God's sake, stop being so dramatic. It's not like you were using your credit for anything anyway." "I've been saving for my own place for 3 years," I said quietly. 3 years of overtime shifts, of saying no to vacations, of living with a roommate in a tiny apartment. All so I could have my own home someday. "Well, there you go," Rebecca said with a dismissive wave. "You weren't even ready to buy yet. So what's the problem?" I stared at her, truly seeing her for the first time. This wasn't just entitlement, this was something colder, more calculated. "The problem," I said slowly, "is that I now have a $390,000 debt in my name that I never agreed to. A debt that's already in default." "We'll fix it," Dad insisted. "Rebecca will catch up on the payments." I turned to my sister. "Will you?" "How?" "You're 2 months behind already. That's what, around $5,000 you need to come up with immediately." Rebecca shifted uncomfortably. "I'll figure it out." "Like you figured out how to pay for your Bahamas trip? Or your new car?" I pulled out my phone again, scrolling through her Instagram. "Or these $300 shoes you bought last week?" "You don't understand the pressure I'm under," Rebecca snapped. "I have to maintain a certain image for my job. And I have to maintain a good credit score for my life." I shot back. My mother stepped in, her voice honeyed with the same placating tone she'd used our whole lives whenever Rebecca and I fought, except it had always been me who was expected to give in. "Amanda, sweetheart, we understand you're upset. But what's done is done. We need to focus on solutions now." I looked at her incredulously. "Solutions? You committed fraud. You stole my identity. You put me on the hook for a massive debt without my knowledge. And you're acting like I'm being unreasonable?" "We didn't steal anything," my father insisted, his face reddening. "We're your parents. That doesn't give you the right to forge my signature." My father's expression hardened. We did what was necessary. Rebecca needed that house for her career advancement. Sometimes in a family, sacrifices have to be made. But it wasn't your sacrifice to make, I said, my voice breaking. It was mine. And you never even asked me. Rebecca let out an exaggerated sigh. If we'd asked, you would have said no. The casual admission stunned me into silence. Of course I would have said no. Any reasonable person would have. I need to see all the documents, I said finally. Everything you signed in my name. My parents exchanged another look. Why? My mother asked nervously. Because I need to know exactly how deep this goes. My father crossed his arms. I don't think that's necessary. A chill ran down my spine. What else did you put in my name? The uncomfortable silence that followed confirmed my worst fears. Dad? Mom? What else is there? Rebecca examined her fingernails again. It's just a couple of credit cards. For emergencies. Credit cards? I echoed. In my name? Just small ones, my mother insisted. With reasonable limits. How many? What are the balances? No one answered. Show me, I demanded, my voice surprisingly steady despite the panic rising in my chest. Now. Reluctantly, my father went to his office and returned with a folder. He slid it across the table without meeting my eyes. With trembling hands, I opened it to find statements for 3 credit cards, all in my name, all near their limits. One for $15,000, another for $8,000, and a third for $12,000. Almost $35,000 in credit card debt I knew nothing about. These are all maxed out, I whispered, flipping through the statements. Designer clothes. Expensive restaurants. Spa weekends. All things I couldn't afford in my actual life. Rebecca needed to establish herself, my mother said weakly. By destroying me financially? My voice was barely audible now. I noticed something else in the folder, a document I didn't recognize. Pulling it out, I realized it was a power of attorney form. With my forged signature. What is this? I held it up, though I already knew the answer. My father cleared his throat. It's just a precaution. In case anything needed to be signed while you were busy with work. I felt sick. You actually created a document giving yourselves legal authority over my finances? It made things simpler, he said defensively. Simpler for whom? For Rebecca? For you? I stood up, the chair scraping loudly against the floor. Do you have any idea what you've done to me? We were trying to help the family, my mother insisted. By sacrificing me? I gathered the documents with shaking hands. I'm your daughter too. Or did you forget that? Rebecca rolled her eyes again. Always so dramatic. Something in me snapped. Dramatic? I just found out my family has committed multiple felonies in my name, racked up almost $500,000 in debt, and potentially destroyed my financial future for years to come. And I'm being dramatic? We would never let anything bad happen to you, my mother pleaded. I laughed, a harsh sound devoid of humor. It already has happened. You did this to me. My own family. I shoved the documents into my bag and headed for the door. Amanda, wait, my father called. Where are you going? I turned back one last time. To figure out if there's any way to save myself from the people who were supposed to protect me. The drive home was a blur. Tears streamed down my face as I tried to process the magnitude of the betrayal. This wasn't just about money, it was about trust, about family, about my very identity. Back in my apartment, I spread the documents across my kitchen table and began making calls. Credit bureaus. Banks. An attorney friend from college. With each conversation, the pit in my stomach grew deeper. Identity theft is serious, my lawyer friend explained gravely. But family fraud cases are complicated. Are you prepared to potentially see your parents and sister face criminal charges? I wasn't. Despite everything, the thought of my family in legal trouble made me sick. But as I stared at the mounting evidence of their betrayal, I wondered if I had any choice. My credit was in ruins. The debt in my name now exceeded $425,000. And the missed mortgage payments were already being reported to credit bureaus. My phone lit up with a text from Rebecca. "Don't be a baby about this. We're family. You'll get over it." No remorse. No acknowledgement of the harm done. No plan to make it right. I realized then that this wasn't just about the money, it was about a lifetime of being taken for granted, of being expected to sacrifice while Rebecca took whatever she wanted. And I was done. 3 days after discovering my family's betrayal, I sat across from Maria Gonzalez, a financial attorney specializing in identity theft. Her office was small but meticulously organized, much like the woman herself, who studied the documents spread before her with sharp, calculating eyes. "This is extensive," she said finally, looking up at me. "And you had no knowledge of any of these accounts?" I shook my head. "None." She tapped her pen against the desk. "I won't sugarcoat this, Amanda. You have 2 options, and neither is painless." I braced myself. "Go on." Option 1, you file a police report for identity theft and fraud. This would clear your name from these debts, but... She hesitated. "But my family would face criminal charges," I finished for her. Maria nodded grimly. "Forgery, identity theft, fraud, these carry serious penalties. Given the dollar amount involved, they could be looking at felony charges. Prison time is a real possibility." My stomach twisted. Despite everything, the thought of my parents in handcuffs made me physically ill. "What's option 2?" I asked, already dreading the answer. "You accept the debt as your own. Work with the creditors on payment plans. Your credit is already damaged, but eventually, you could recover." She leaned forward. "But Amanda, we're talking about well over $400,000. That's a lifetime of financial burden that was never yours to bear." I stared at the ceiling, blinking back tears. "I need time to think." "Of course," Maria said gently. "But the missed mortgage payments are accruing penalties every day." As I left her office, my phone buzzed with a text from my boyfriend, David. "We need to talk." "Dinner tonight?" David and I had been together for just over a year. He was kind, stable, ambitious, everything I thought I wanted. I texted back a quick confirmation, hoping at least this part of my life wasn't about to crumble too. I was wrong. "I don't think I can do this," David said 3 hours later, pushing his barely touched pasta around his plate. We sat in a corner booth of our favorite Italian restaurant, though tonight the familiar setting felt alien and cold. "Do what?" I asked, though I already knew. He wouldn't meet my eyes. "This situation with your family, it's a lot, Amanda. The financial implications alone. You're breaking up with me because my family stole my identity?" The words felt surreal leaving my mouth. David shifted uncomfortably. "It's not just that. It's the drama, the complications. I'm up for partner at the firm next year. I need stability. And I'm not stable enough for you now," I said flatly. "That's not what he sighed. "Look, I care about you. But this could take years to resolve. Your credit is wrecked. We were talking about buying a place together next year, and now that's impossible." I stared at him, seeing him clearly for the first time. "So when you said you loved me, what you meant was you loved the financial future you thought I could help provide." "That's not fair," he protested weakly. "Isn't it?" I stood up, throwing my napkin on the table. "For what it's worth, David, I'm glad I found out what kind of man you really are before wasting any more time." I walked out with my head high, saving my tears for the privacy of my car. Just when I needed support most, another pillar had crumbled beneath me. Over the next few days, things only got worse. My sister had apparently been spreading her version of events to the extended family. "How could you threaten to send your own parents to jail?" my Aunt Susan demanded when she called me that weekend. After everything they've done for you. You don't understand, I tried to explain. I understand that family sticks together, she cut me off. Rebecca told me how you've always been jealous of her success. But this is a new low, even for you. The calls kept coming, from cousins, from family friends, even from my grandmother, all of them believing Rebecca's narrative that I was having some kind of vindictive breakdown. By Monday morning, I felt completely alone. I called in sick to work, unable to face even my coworkers after a weekend of character assassination. Around noon, my phone rang again. I almost didn't answer, expecting another relative's lecture. But the name on the screen surprised me, Cousin Michael. Michael and I had never been particularly close. He was 5 years older and lived on the other side of the country. We only saw each other at major family events. Amanda? His voice was hesitant when I answered. Do you have a minute to talk? If you're calling to tell me what a terrible daughter I am. I'm not, he interrupted quickly. Actually, I'm calling because the same thing happened to me. I sat up straight. What? 6 years ago, Michael said quietly. Aunt Diane and Uncle Robert, your parents, they did something similar to me. Not as extensive, but the same pattern. My mind raced. What happened? They asked to use my credit for a business loan for Rebecca's first venture. I said no, I was just starting my own career and couldn't risk it. 3 months later, I discovered they'd taken out a $50,000 loan in my name anyway. I felt sick. What did you do? I confronted them. They gave me the same excuses: family responsibility, Rebecca's potential, how I was being selfish. He sighed heavily. I was younger then, less established. I let them intimidate me into silence. I worked 2 extra jobs for 3 years to pay off that loan. Why didn't you ever say anything? I asked. By the time I'd paid it off, I just wanted to forget about it. I moved across the country partly to get away from the whole situation. He paused. But when I heard what they'd done to you, I couldn't stay silent this time. For the first time in days, I felt a flicker of validation. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't overreacting. This was a pattern. Thank you for telling me, I said, my voice thick with emotion. There's something else you should know, Michael added hesitantly. This isn't just about financial convenience. Your parents, especially Aunt Diane, they've always had this weird obsession with Rebecca's success. Like they're living vicariously through her. They'll do literally anything to maintain the image of her perfect life, no matter who gets hurt. As Michael's words sank in, pieces began falling into place. The lifelong pattern of my parents prioritizing Rebecca's wants over my needs. The constant pressure to be understanding whenever Rebecca took something that was mine. What are you going to do? Michael asked gently. I took a deep breath, feeling stronger than I had in days. I'm going to protect myself, I said. And I'm never going to let them use me again. When we hung up, I immediately called Maria's office and scheduled another appointment. The time for indecision was over. Maria's office felt different this time, less intimidating, more like a sanctuary from the storms swirling around me. I sat straighter in my chair, the weight of hesitation lifted from my shoulders. I've made my decision, I told her. I'm not accepting debts I never agreed to. Maria nodded, her expression carefully neutral. And you understand what that means for your family? They're not acting like my family, I said quietly. A real family doesn't sacrifice one member for another's benefit. She began organizing paperwork. We'll need to file a police report first, then contact each creditor with fraud claims. It's going to be a process, Amanda. Are you prepared for how messy this might get? Before I could answer, my phone rang. Rebecca. I declined the call, only for it to ring again immediately. And again. I should take this, I said apologetically. They know I'm meeting with a lawyer today. Maria gestured for me to go ahead. What? I answered coldly. How dare you? Rebecca hissed. Michael called Mom in tears this morning, confessing his guilt about telling you family secrets. What kind of person turns family members against each other like this? I almost laughed at the irony. That's rich coming from you. Weren't you just calling everyone in the family to paint me as jealous and unstable? That's different, she snapped. I was protecting our parents. From what? The consequences of their actions? Rebecca lowered her voice. Listen to me very carefully, Amanda. If you go through with this, if you file those fraud reports, you will never be welcome in this family again. Mom and Dad will never forgive you. Is that what you want? I closed my eyes, absorbing the threat that would have devastated me just days before. Now it felt almost liberating. Rebecca, I said, surprising myself with my calm tone, what makes you think I'd want to be part of a family that uses me this way? She was silent for a moment. So that's it? 30 years of being sisters, and you're throwing it away over some signatures on paper? You threw it away, I corrected her. The moment you decided my financial future was yours to ruin. I never meant. Yes, you did, I interrupted. You knew exactly what you were doing. You just never thought you'd face consequences for it. I ended the call and turned back to Maria, who had been pretending not to listen. I'm ready, I said firmly. Let's do this. The next week passed in a blur of paperwork, police interviews, and difficult conversations. The detective assigned to my case was a kind-eyed woman named Officer Chen who had seen too many family fraud cases to be shocked by mine. Unfortunately, this happens more often than people realize, she told me as I signed my statement. Family members feel entitled to use each other's credit, assuming blood relations mean automatic forgiveness. Will they go to jail? I forced myself to ask the question that had been haunting me. Officer Chen's expression softened. That depends on several factors, including whether they're first-time offenders and if they're willing to make restitution. But I'll be honest with you, given the dollar amount involved, some legal consequences are likely. The reality of what I'd set in motion settled heavily on my shoulders, but I refused to buckle under its weight. This was their choice, not mine. Later that evening, as I sorted through my now chaotic finances, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. I almost ignored it but answered on impulse. Amanda Palmer? A woman's professional voice came through the line. Yes? This is Sarah Williams from Channel 7 News. We're doing a special report on family identity theft, and Detective Chen mentioned your case might. I hung up immediately, my heart racing. The last thing I needed was to have this nightmare broadcast on local news. But that call opened the floodgates. Somehow, word had spread about my situation. The next morning, my boss called me into his office. Amanda, he began awkwardly, some concerning rumors have reached me about your personal situation. My stomach dropped. What kind of rumors? Something about legal troubles? Family fraud? He shifted uncomfortably. Look, the bank values employees with stable personal lives. Especially those handling sensitive financial information like you do. I stared at him in disbelief. Are you saying my job is in jeopardy because I'm the victim of identity theft? Of course not, he backpedaled quickly. I'm just suggesting you might want to keep this situation private. I felt my professional reputation crumbling alongside my personal life. The unfairness of it all was suffocating. That night, alone in my apartment, I finally broke down completely. Curled on my bathroom floor, I sobbed until my throat was raw and my eyes burned. Everything I'd worked for, my savings, my credit score, my professional reputation, my family relationships, all of it was in shambles because of choices I never made. A gentle knock on my apartment door eventually roused me. Puffy-eyed and exhausted, I peered through the peephole to find my neighbor, Zoe, holding a covered dish. I heard you crying, she said when I opened the door. I made too much lasagna and thought you might want some. The simple kindness cracked what remained of my composure, and fresh tears spilled down my cheeks. I'm sorry, I hiccuped, embarrassed. Don't be, Zoe said firmly, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. Bad days happen to everyone. Let me make you some tea. As Zoe bustled around my kitchen, I found myself telling her everything: the fraud, the family betrayal, the workplace suspicion, all of it. I'd only known Zoe casually for the 2 years we'd been neighbors, exchanging pleasantries in the hallway and collecting each other's packages. But in that moment, she was the only person who seemed willing to simply listen without judgment. That's incredibly messed up, she said when I finished my story. And I'm sorry so many people are making this harder for you instead of easier. I just feel so alone, I admitted. Zoe considered this, then pulled out her phone. I belong to a support group for financial abuse survivors. A lot of the members have experienced family fraud. Would you be open to joining our meeting tomorrow night? I hesitated. I'm not sure if what happened to me qualifies as abuse. Financial exploitation by the people who should protect you? Zoe raised an eyebrow. That's textbook financial abuse, Amanda. The next evening, I found myself in a community center meeting room with 8 other people of various ages and backgrounds. One by one, they shared stories with uncomfortable similarities to mine: parents taking out student loans in their children's names, siblings opening credit cards, spouses secretly draining retirement accounts. As I listened, something shifted inside me. For the first time since this nightmare began, I didn't feel like I was overreacting or being difficult. These people understood exactly what I was going through because they'd lived it too. When it was my turn to speak, the words came easier than I expected. I shared everything: the mortgage, the credit cards, the power of attorney, the family backlash. No one interrupted with questions about why I didn't just help my family. No one suggested I was being selfish or vindictive for seeking justice. The hardest part, I confessed, is that even after everything they've done, there's still this part of me that feels guilty for holding them accountable. Lisa, the group facilitator, nodded understanding. That guilt isn't yours to carry, Amanda. They're counting on that guilt to manipulate you. But you have every right to protect yourself. As I walked home that night, I felt something I hadn't experienced in weeks: hope. I wasn't alone anymore. And I was stronger than I'd ever given myself credit for. When I reached my apartment, I found an envelope that had been slipped under my door. Inside was a short note in my father's handwriting. We need to talk. Come to the house tomorrow at 6. It's important. I stared at the note, feeling the old pull of obligation. Then I crumpled it up and threw it in the trash. This time, they would have to face the consequences without me. 3 weeks after filing the police report, I received a call from Officer Chin. We've completed our investigation, she said, her tone professional but gentle. Warrants have been issued for your parents and sister. They're being asked to surrender by the end of the day. I gripped the phone tighter, a complex wave of emotions washing over me: relief, vindication, but also a deep sadness I couldn't shake. What happens now? I asked. They'll be arrested, booked, and then released on bail pending trial. Given the evidence, especially the power of attorney document, the DA is pushing for felony charges. Felony charges. The words hung in the air like a physical presence. My parents and sister could go to prison because of what they'd done, because of the report I'd filed. Is there any way to avoid that? I asked, surprising myself. Officer Chin paused. There might be. If they agree to a plea deal and make full restitution, the prosecutor might consider reduced charges. I thanked her and hung up, my thoughts racing. Minutes later, my phone rang again: my father. After weeks of ignoring their calls and messages, I found myself answering. Amanda? His voice sounded strained, unfamiliar. The police are here. They say we have to turn ourselves in. I know, I replied quietly. How could you do this to your own family? The familiar accusatory tone crept back in, but now it sounded hollow, desperate. I didn't do this, I said firmly. You did. When you forged my name on documents that have destroyed my financial future. We're your parents, he protested weakly. We raised you, loved you. And then betrayed me in the worst possible way, I finished. Being parents doesn't give you the right to ruin my life. A shuffling sound came through the phone, and then my mother's tearful voice, Amanda, please. We can't go to jail. Your father's heart couldn't take it. Rebecca's career would be over. You should have thought about that before committing fraud, I said, though my resolve was weakening at the sound of her crying. What do you want from us? My father asked, back on the line. Money? We'll pay you back, whatever it takes. It's not about money, I said. It's about trust. About respect. Things you can't just pay back. Then what? He demanded. What will make this right? I took a deep breath. Come to my apartment tonight. All of you. We need to talk face to face. That evening, I paced my small living room, rehearsing what I wanted to say. Maria had helped me draft a restitution agreement that would protect me legally while potentially offering my family a way to avoid the harshest consequences. The knock came at exactly 7 p.m. When I opened the door, I barely recognized them. My father looked decades older, his shoulders slumped in defeat. My mother's eyes were red and swollen from crying. Even Rebecca's usual confidence was gone, replaced by a tense vulnerability I'd never seen before. They filed in silently, taking seats where I directed them. No one seemed to know how to begin. I didn't want this, I said finally, breaking the silence. I didn't want to see my family facing criminal charges. But you gave me no choice. There's always a choice, my father muttered. Like the choice you gave me? I shot back. When you decided to forge my signature and saddle me with debt I never agreed to? He looked away, unable to meet my gaze. The prosecutor is willing to consider a plea deal, I continued. Reduce charges if you make full restitution. Hope flickered across their faces. What does that mean exactly? Rebecca asked, speaking for the first time. I pulled out the agreement Maria had drafted. It means you take full responsibility for all the debts in my name. The mortgage gets transferred to your name immediately, Rebecca. The credit cards too. You make the back payments and cover all the legal fees. Rebecca paled. I can't afford all that. You should have thought of that before buying a house you couldn't afford, I said coldly. Before taking those lavish vacations while missing mortgage payments. We'll help her, my mother said quickly. We'll do whatever it takes. I nodded. There's more. I want a signed admission of what you did. A formal acknowledgement that I was the victim, not the villain, in this story. What for? My father asked suspiciously. Because half the family thinks I'm trying to destroy you out of jealousy, I explained. Because my reputation has been damaged by the lies you've spread. And because I deserve that much honesty after everything you've put me through. My mother reached for the papers with trembling hands. We'll sign whatever you want. Just please don't let them send us to jail. As they reviewed the agreement, I watched them, these people who had raised me, who should have protected me, now at my mercy. I felt no satisfaction, no sense of triumph. Only a profound grief for the family bonds that had been irreparably damaged. After they signed, an uncomfortable silence fell over the room. Is that it? Rebecca asked quietly. Is this over? I looked at her, really looked at her, seeing both my sister and a stranger at the same time. The legal part might be, I said slowly. But what happened between us can't be undone with a signature. We're still family, my mother insisted, tears welling in her eyes again. Are we? I countered. Because family doesn't do what you did to me. My father leaned forward, his expression earnest in a way I'd rarely seen. We made a terrible mistake, Amanda. The worst mistake of our lives. But please, don't throw away decades of history because of it. I felt the familiar pull of obligation, the lifetime of conditioning to put others' needs before my own. But something had changed in me these past weeks. I'd found my voice, my boundaries, my strength. I'm not throwing anything away, I said carefully. But I am protecting myself. From now on, we rebuild, if we rebuild at all, on my terms. No more manipulation. No more taking advantage. No more expecting me to sacrifice while Rebecca gets everything. Rebecca flinched. That's not fair. Isn't it? I asked, raising an eyebrow. When was the last time you were asked to give something up for my benefit? She had no answer. I need time, I continued. Time to heal, time to rebuild my life and my credit. And during that time, I need space from all of you. For how long? My mother asked, her voice small. I don't know, I admitted. Maybe months. Maybe years. Maybe forever. My father stood abruptly. This isn't right. After everything we've done for you. Robert, my mother cut him off sharply. Haven't we done enough? He deflated, the fight going out of him. For the first time in my life, I saw my father yield to someone else's perspective, and it wasn't Rebecca's. As they gathered their things to leave, Rebecca lingered behind. I never thought about how it affected you, she said quietly. I just took what I wanted. Like I always have. It wasn't quite an apology, but from Rebecca, it was unprecedented. I know, I said simply. After they left, I sat alone in my apartment, the signed agreement clutched in my hands. It wasn't justice, not really. But it was a step toward reclaiming my life. And for now, that was enough. 1 year later, I stood in the doorway of my new apartment, modest but entirely mine. Sunlight streamed through the windows, illuminating the space I'd worked so hard to secure. The last box is in, Zoe announced, wiping her brow as she set down a container labeled kitchen. I think that's everything. I smiled, taking in the scene. After a year of crashing on Zoe's couch to save money, I finally had a place of my own again. I can't thank you enough, I told her. For everything. She waved away my gratitude with a grin. Please. This calls for celebration, not thanks. As she pulled a bottle of champagne from her bag, I reflected on how much had changed. The legal battle with my family had concluded 6 months ago with a settlement that protected me from the fraudulent debts while allowing them to avoid jail time. The mortgage had been transferred to Rebecca's name, the credit cards paid off and closed. My credit score was slowly recovering, though the damage would take years to fully repair. But the most profound changes weren't financial, they were within me. Earth to Amanda, Zoe called, waving a champagne flute in front of my face. Where'd you go just now? I accepted the glass with a smile. Just thinking about how different things are. Different good? She asked, settling onto my new, well, secondhand, couch. Different better, I confirmed. A year ago, I didn't even know who I was outside of what my family expected from me. My phone buzzed on the counter. A text from Rebecca, heard today is moving day. Hope it goes well. Our relationship had shifted into something unrecognizable. Not close, perhaps never close again, but civil. Tentative. Sometimes, when I let myself think about it, painfully formal compared to what sisters should be. Are you going to respond? Zoe asked, noticing my hesitation. I set the phone down. Later. Today is about moving forward, not looking back. We clinked glasses and sipped our champagne, interrupted by another knock at the door. I opened it to find the support group members, Lisa, Marco, Jen, and the others who had become my lifeline during the darkest moments. Surprise! Lisa exclaimed, holding up a houseplant. Every new home needs something living to care for. They filed in bearing small gifts, practical things like dish towels and picture frames, knowing my finances were still tight. As they admired the apartment, I felt a sudden swell of gratitude for these people who had become my chosen family when my biological one had failed me. Speech. Marco called out, raising his glass. From the woman of the hour. I laughed, embarrassed by the attention but touched by their support. I'm not sure what to say except, thank you. A year ago, I thought I'd lost everything. My savings, my credit, my family, my whole identity felt like it was crumbling. Zoe squeezed my shoulder encouragingly. But now I realize, I continued, that losing those things forced me to discover who I really am. Not the responsible daughter who cleans up everyone else's messes. Not the silent sister who steps aside so someone else can shine. Just me. Amanda. Still figuring it out, but on my own terms. To Amanda, Lisa toasted, and to fresh starts. As glasses clinked around me, my phone buzzed again. My mother this time. Your father and I were wondering if you'd like to come to Sunday dinner next week. No pressure. Just an invitation. I stared at the message, conflicted. Over the past year, my parents had respected my boundaries, maintaining distance while occasionally reaching out with cautious overtures. No demands, no guilt trips. Just simple acknowledgments of holidays or brief inquiries about my well-being. It was progress, but I wasn't sure if it was enough. Everything okay? Jen asked, noticing my expression. My parents want me to come to dinner, I explained. It's the third invitation in as many months. Are you considering it? Marco asked carefully. I set the phone aside again. Not today. Today is about celebrating this milestone. I'll think about family complications tomorrow. As the small housewarming continued around me, I slipped away to the bathroom for a moment of quiet. Looking in the mirror, I hardly recognized myself. Not physically, though the stress of the past year had left its marks, but in the confidence now present in my eyes. The unmistakable strength in my posture. I'd learned to stand up for myself. To set boundaries. To recognize manipulation and refuse to participate in it. These were lessons I'd never expected to learn. Certainly not from my own family. A soft knock interrupted my thoughts. Amanda? It was Lisa. Sorry to bother you, but there's someone else here to see you. Curious, I emerged to find cousin Michael standing awkwardly in my living room, a small wrapped package in his hands. Michael. I exclaimed, genuinely surprised. How did you? Zoe invited me, he admitted. I hope that's okay. I wanted to see your new place. I hugged him, a gesture that would have been unthinkable before our shared experience had forged a real connection between us. I brought you something, he said, handing me the package. It's not much, but... I unwrapped it to find a beautiful leather-bound journal with my name embossed on the cover. I thought you might want to write down your story, he explained. Not just what they did, but how you overcame it. It helped me to do that. I traced my fingers over the embossed letters. Thank you. This means a lot. As the afternoon wore on, my small apartment filled with laughter and conversation. These people, some I'd known for years, others who had entered my life only during crisis, had shown me what genuine support looked like. What healthy relationships felt like. Later, after everyone had gone except Zoe, I finally replied to my mother's text, not ready for Sunday dinner yet. But I could meet for coffee sometime next week. Just us. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. But it was an opening, a small one, carefully guarded, but real. So, Zoe said, helping me arrange my few pieces of furniture, how does it feel to be officially on your own? I looked around the apartment, small but mine, filled with only things I had chosen. My finances were simple but honest. My relationships were fewer but authentic. It feels like freedom, I told her. Like I'm finally writing my own story instead of playing a role in someone else's. That night, after Zoe left, I sat on my new balcony watching the sunset. My phone buzzed with my mother's reply, coffee would be wonderful. Whenever you're ready. I set the phone aside and opened Michael's journal, pen poised over the first blank page. There was still so much to process, so much to heal from. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, rebuilding credit, renegotiating family relationships, learning to trust again after such profound betrayal. But for the first time, I felt truly capable of facing whatever came next. Not as the family scapegoat or the responsible daughter or the overlooked sister, but simply as Amanda, stronger than I'd ever known, freer than I'd ever been, and finally, truly, living life on my own terms. I began to write. A year ago, I received a call that changed everything. The bank called me about a $390,000 mortgage, in my name. I never signed. My parents put me on my sister's loan. What happened next taught me the hardest lesson of my life. Sometimes the people who should protect you the most are the ones you need protection from. The words flowed easily now, my story no longer a source of shame but of strength. Not a tragedy, but a transformation. As night fell, I closed the journal, feeling a sense of peace that had eluded me for so long. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, a coffee date with my mother, more credit repair calls, the continuing work of rebuilding. But tonight, in this small apartment that represented so much more than just four walls, I was exactly where I needed to be. Finally home. Finally free. Finally me.